There's a quote that's been living in my head since I read it. Instead of praising people for being resilient, change the system that's making them vulnerable. As Dr. Muna Abdi. The second I read that, I thought, that's the default loop. Not a personal one, a systemic one. We've built a whole culture that hands out medals for surviving, conditions we never bothered to fix. My guest today has spent his career refusing to run that loop. Welcome, Greg, licensed marriage and family therapist, co-founder of Clinical Director in Solidarity Counseling, first-generation Haitian American. Before we get into any of that work, you are first-generation Haitian, I'm first-generation Haitian, Fort Lauderdale, Florida, my mother, Marlin St. Pierre. So let's start there because I don't think you get to that work you're doing without that house and that culture. So what did your parents think about mental health? And what did it cost you to become a therapist within a culture that didn't have the language for it?
Man, my brother said Fort Lauderdale, man, you looking at Pompano Beach, you know?
Let's go.
We was just neighbors, man, just across the way. And I love that question, man, because the reality was mental health was ever present within my family, within our everyday interactions and experiences. But because there's this disconnect when it comes to the concepts and that level of education to be able to name and recognize what was going on, there was a dismissal of mental health, and it was more couched in that realm of spirituality. If someone was having a mental health disorder like schizophrenia or bipolar disorder, I had an uncle when I was living in Miami who had bipolar or some type of schizophrenia, some type of manic type of disorder. It was couched in the demons and Satan because that's what my elders could more relate to. That's what they were more familiar with. So that's where mental health was couched, in the spiritual / religious realm, instead of it actually being addressed in a more down-to-earth, manageable space. So that's where mental health sat. And that was my understanding of mental health when I was growing up, through that spiritual, religious lens, until I was able to connect with the profession and I was able to acquire the education so I could make a distinction between the spiritual versus the more mental, emotional, psychosocial space.
Yeah, that's powerful. You mentioned the spiritual aspect, and I relate to that. My mother would say, demon for everything. The mic didn't work at church. It's just like, it's the demon, start praying. So when were you exposed to think differently? You saw a pattern of everything being labeled the spiritual. What was the exposure or the catalyst to make you start to think a little bit different?
I would say for sure high school. High school was when I ended up going to a specialty high school in Las Vegas, Nevada. It was for the medical profession because in any immigrant culture, you get taught that you become a doctor, an engineer, business, or a lawyer. I was headed down that path, and I found out that that wasn't necessarily for me. But while I was getting my education, I was introduced to the mental health profession. And as I started learning more about the profession, I was like, wow, this is really capturing my lived experience. I could correlate experiences I had with the concepts that I was learning. Anxiety, I was like, oh, that's my mom. Like, oh, bipolar disorder, that's that uncle. I was able to start making those connections. And I was like, this is something I'm really interested in. I would like to go from window shopping to actually being more invested in this profession and field, which led to the trajectory that I'm on now.
Being in the game versus watching from the sideline and getting that exposure of saying, okay, this was my uncle, this is what my mom experienced, and labeling it outside of the spiritual aspect so you can actually deal with it. Slight pivot. You practice in Utah, one of the healthiest states in the nation. What does that headline hide?
That headline hides everything. Utah is a fascinating qualitative study because the statistics are so wild out here in the state, where you can have people who talk about this concept of having a great quality of life, but then on the other side of the spectrum, You have people who are struggling with various health disparities, the air quality, when it comes to housing insecurity, when it comes to gender, and all of these different perspectives. So there are so many things that's being hidden behind that statistic, because we know when it comes to data that's collected, that data in itself is biased because you are looking at a specific demographic. We have the concept of confirmation bias. If you're looking to prove something, you're going to prove it. That's what we've been seeing in some of these statistics and data is we're only going to focus on what we want to see and the message that we want to present. So there is so much being hidden behind that statistic that you just mentioned.
Thank you for pulling back the curtain, because I remember a mentor of mine saying, what gets revealed gets healed. And you being a physician, what we can address gets diagnosed, and then we can start defining it, and ultimately we can start solving it. So I am curious, Black Physician of Utah was founded by Dr. Richard Ferguson at the height of COVID. If not us, then who? If not now, then when? That's not a slogan, that's a decision made under maximum pressure with zero certainty. Walk me through what it took to say yes to that.
Man, I can only imagine what led Dr. Ferguson to go from directly serving the community through his expertise and skill set to say that this is not enough, that more can be done, and other people in this state are not doing that more. And I'm going to take the initiative. I'm going to take it a step further to provide more, to create a vehicle of health equity here in the state of Utah. I can't even imagine, but for me, how I can correlate it was when I met Dr. Ferguson in 2023, and I was there as an attendee at the Black Men's Monthly mental health forums that are hosted. When I interacted with him, I could see the passion, the dedication, that purpose-driven mission. It was palpable on him. And when he found out that I was a practicing mental health provider, he immediately was like, you should be the one leading this forum. I want you to start leading these forums. And I was taken aback because that was the first time I met him. And he was already saying, you're going to go from being a participant to being actively an agent in this work of creating transformative change within our community. And to me, I was like, I can get with that. This person with the level of purpose and passion that they had, I'm like, sign me up. I can get behind that. And I've been a part of the organization ever since.
I'm going to ask you to not be humble on this next question, right? He said yes to you. He was saying you should lead it. Who did Greg have to become in order for Dr. Richardson or Ferguson to say, yes, please lead this? Who did you have to become, and what did you have to lose?
Wow. Man, the person I had to become was someone that could walk and work through the insecurities, the inadequacies, the feelings of, I would say, not enough that I was, grappling with. The season that Dr. Ferguson met me in was one of my lowest points in my life. Someone who has these immigrant roots, you're taught to succeed at all odds. You're taught to go out there and get the good job, the profession. When Dr. Ferguson met me, I had been fired from the good job. And I was on the process of growing as an entrepreneur. I was fresh in private practice, starting to get my feet under me. So to have someone who looked at me and saw my potential, that saw my light, and was breathing life into me and encouraging me to live within my light, I couldn't help but to do that, step forward and to really show up for the community and to be invested in the work. And to me, I always tell Dr. Ferguson, I'm forever grateful to him for the manner in which he's been able to pour into me so I can pour into others.
One of my mentors when I was 16 would always teach us, each one reach one, each one teach one. And as Dr. Ferguson poured into you, I'm hearing the same level of passion because you felt that passion and that purpose, and now it's becoming this ripple effect. Moment of truth. Thank you for that vulnerability, because I think the biggest thing as leaders and people who are stepping into creating impact and contributing to our community is to super highlight the good moments. But what was the decision process? What was the mindset like in you being at your lowest and that not enoughness, and then to succeed at all odds because of that immigrant mentality is what got you to being in the position that you are to serve others? Slight pivot. The summit is built on 5 social determinants of health: healthcare, housing, education, economic stability, community connection. Why those 5?
Because we're whole human beings. Our needs are not limited by what the society has deemed. We operate in a way that at the end of the day, our health and our wellness can be in alignment if we're tending to them, but oftentimes we live in a society that compartmentalizes these 2 aspects of our whole humanity. One of my favorite sayings is, just because someone is healthy doesn't mean that they're well, and just because someone is well does not mean that they're healthy. The reason why we founded this inaugural event on the 5 social determinants of health was we want our community to be intentional about tending to their whole humanity. If your housing ain't situated, it's hard to have all of these other determinants of health. That's why it's the first determinant of health. If someone has a place to rest, to rejuvenate, so they can be ready to tackle the other aspects of life, then we're setting them up for success. Housing insecurity is one of the most problematic and destructive things that continues to plague this country of America. That's one of the conversations my mom would always have with me is, I would be home in Haiti right now if housing insecurity wasn't one of the issues I was facing back there. There's a reason why I'm here in America, and there's a reason why I had you here in America, because I don't want you to deal with the same disparities I was experiencing in Haiti. This is one of the reasons why we couch this in the 5 social determinants of health, because we want people to be intentional about their whole humanity, and then we want to be able to have resources present at this event that helps them to address their needs. Their needs matter. Their needs are important, and we want to make sure that we can support our community in this way.
I can hear the passion, and I appreciate that. I want to push back just for a little bit, because some people here change the system, and then they also hear nothing I do as an individual matters. Like, what do you say to that?
Man, again, at the end of the day, we want people to see their resources. We want people to see this space from that lens of abundance. That's where my mom was operating from when she decided to leave Haiti to come to America, to go to Florida. She was looking at the circumstance from that lens of abundance. If I can't find what I need here in my home, then I don't want to leave. Then I'm going to connect with a place that's foreign to me, but I know I have more access to the resources that I need. So that's why we're doing this event, is to say, you have a wealth of resources that are here readily accessible to you. You don't have to cross the ocean to access these resources. So let us bridge that gap for you. We can bridge that gap here in Utah so you can connect with the resources that you need so you can tend to your health and well-being. So that's the reason why we're doing this, is to say resource gaps here in America, we can address those. We have the proper entities, the organizations, the proper movers and shakers to address these disparity gaps. There is no reason why here in America, we should have the statistics that we have. So let's do something about it, and we're planning to do something about it.
In that same line, as a clinician, what's the difference between helping someone cope and helping someone change their condition?
My goodness. We're talking about the distinction between enabling and supporting. At the end of the day, if we're helping someone to cope, which is this resiliency that often is praised, we're just telling people at the end of the day, throw a Band-Aid on your circumstances, and eventually that Band-Aid wears out. If we're talking about supporting people so they can address and heal those circumstances, then we're giving them the direction and access to the tools that they need, because you and I come from some of the most resilient people. They don't need a handout, they need a hand up. Okay, our people know what they're doing, they know how to get it done, they just need the tools. They just need to be pointed in the right direction, and that's what we're doing with this inaugural Health and Wellness Summit and Expo. We're not telling you we're here to rescue you, we ain't here to save you. We're here to uplift and encourage you and get the situation done that needs to get done. You know what needs to get done, let's give you the tools, the resources, and you go ahead and get it done. And we're grateful to be a part of your journey. We are not the journey, we're just a part of your journey.
One of my favorite authors is Donald Miller. He talked about the hero and the guide. And as I'm listening to you, I hear the guide and not the hero. So walking alongside of the individual to empower them and give them the tools so they can know their next right step. So that's powerful. Saturday, September 26th, 9 to 5, University of Utah Student Union Building. Tell me what's happening in that room.
Oh man, what's happening in that room? We're bringing, from 9 to 2 p.m. That's our summit section. This is a dual mission event. We're going to be bringing healthcare providers from all specialties, mental health care providers from all specialties to come and acquire continuing education that is grounded on innovation and health equity. That's what's going to be happening during the summit portion. The expo portion is open to the general public from 2 to 5. We're inviting our community in. We're telling our community, come to the cookout. When you come to the cookout, what you're planning to expect is good food, great entertainment. We have our brother Andre Dubois hosting in a fantastic fashion show. We're going to have food truck vendors and a wealth of organizations that represent the 5 social determinants of health: housing, healthcare, education, work, community, to help the people to connect with what they're needing so they can address their health and wellness in a way that helps them to have a sustainable lifestyle.
I love that. And as you talk about the expo and the food truck, that sounds amazing. In this fashion show, the $1 million question is, who is this for and who is it not for?
The key question is, this is for the people. This is for the community. This is for the human collective. If you identify as being a part of the human collective, then yeah, this is for you. But if you see yourself beyond that, then this is for you. If you don't identify as the human collective, that's the only way I can answer that. This is for the people.
Okay. So let's be a little more specific here. What do you need from the audience? Do you need sponsors, vendors, bodies, and seats?
Oh man, we need it all. We would love to have sponsors that align with this event. If you see that this event aligns with your organization's mission and values and the way in which you pour into the community, then connect with us. We would love to collaborate with you. Vendors, we're looking for organizations that represent the 5 social determinants of health. If your organization is in support of improving people's housing situation, healthcare situation, educational situation, work situation, their connection with other human beings, because right now, one of the greatest epidemics is loneliness and isolation. So community is an essential part of this event because we want to bring back the old school. We want to bring back people connecting and collaborating in person. because that's something that we've lost. And we said, hey, let's run it back. Let's bring back old school. From attendees to partners, we want it all for this event. We want people to be dialed and locked into this event. We want you present in all of these different ways.
And if you don't know, now you know. So back to you, Greg. I want to understand, what does your operating mind looks like now, and what's the decision filter you use throughout the day? How does Greg's mind work when he's making decisions?
Man, there's an old school philosopher. I can't fully quote the name of them. An amazing Black woman said this on a podcast. The philosopher said, courage is the balance of confidence and fear. And you get to determine how you approach any type of situation. That's the framework that I operate off of. Is if I'm going to show up courageous in a situation, then what is fueling my confidence? What is the information, the content? What is the legwork that I'm doing ahead of time? So when I'm showing up in a situation, I'm showing up as my best self. I'm giving that situation my all. One of my favorite sayings is, it's best to stay ready so you ain't got to get ready. And that's what I am, is I try to stay ready at all times. So I would say that these are some of the things that influence the framework in which I operate.
Stay ready so you don't have to get ready. As we're approaching the close of this show, what's one thing you want someone to text a friend after they hear this?
Something that I would love to leave people with is the fact that our quality of life is our responsibility. If we are not being intentional about how we show up for ourselves, how can we show up for one another? One of my favorite quotes, it's an African proverb. It says that, if I am well, my community is well. If I am not well, my community is not well. I am an invaluable resource to my community. If I see myself as expendable, then that's how I'm going to show up. But if I see myself as invaluable, I'm going to be intentional about how I pour into myself. I will connect with the Health and Wellness Summit and Expo because I see the value in that resource. But if I view myself as expendable, I'm just going to see it as something that I could easily dismiss or overlook. So that's what I want to leave the people with is, how do you see yourself? How do you treat yourself? Because how you treat yourself, how you see yourself, influences how you show up and how you interact and engage with the world around you.
So when people listen to this, Greg, how can they get connected with you, and how can they reach you personally?
I would love the people to go to BPOU.org. That is the best way to connect with our organization and the work that we're doing. We did some updates to the website. So when you go to that website, this event is front and center on the website. All the necessary links to connect with the event is there. So just feel free to go to BPOU.org and you're going to get plugged in and locked in with us.
So if this moves something you, don't let it sit. Saturday, September 26th from 9 to 5, University of Utah Student Union Building. Registration, like Greg said, bpou.org/Health Wellness Summit and Expo. Link is also going to be in the show note. And if you run a business or a practice, there's sponsorship page and a vendor booth application in there as well. Showing up matters, funding it matters more. Everything else I'm building lives on theclaritybrand.ai. One more thing before we close. If you're in a crisis right now, 988 is a suicide and crisis lifeline. And in Utah, the Safe UT app is free and available 24/7. Train your mind, own your decisions, build by design, and prosper. For the ones who are done deciding by accident, decide differently. I'll see you on the next one. Thank you, Greg.
Thank you for having me. Wow.